I'm your host, your moderator, Jeff Brown from the Jeff Brown Show, and new TV show coming out on national platform called Confessions with Jeff Brown. So we're excited about that. I am here in the capacity to serve and to help create the discussion so we can find real answers, real solutions as we move forward to bringing real healing to our community and giving support to those families who have faced.
Marcella Boyd Cox from Boyd's Funeral Home.
Let's get her head. She came in. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off introducing ourselves, and first let's start here with our panel. We'll start to my right, far right.
Good morning, Pastor Grady Stevenson, working in the Department of Public Safety. Glad to be here this morning to share with you all part of what happens on my side. So, thank you for being here, part of the panel or group that puts on these victims conference with Dr. Gloria Pointer. Been working with her for several years. I'm saying working with her, I think I worked for her, even though I was her supervisor. And I worked for her for several years. So thank you again for being here. God bless you.
And good morning again. I'm sorry for being a little late. My name is Marcella Boyd Cox, and I'm with the BF Woodson Funeral Home. I am the vice president, actually, and I'm in charge of the marketing for the business. It's an honor to be here. Have known Yvonne for many, many years, and thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mo Brown. I'm with the Cleveland Division of Police. I am the commander over the Bureau of Special Services. I oversee 6 units, and homicide is one of those units I oversee. Prior to that, I was the officer in charge, lieutenant in charge of homicide.
Good morning. Thank you again for having me. Salah Haldal, I'm assistant prosecuting attorney. Been with the county prosecutor's office for close to 27 years, and a lot of those years dealt with the homicides, and maybe give you a little insight as to the process when it goes from investigation and what turns into a prosecution that will eventually make its way to a courtroom. So thank you very much for having me.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rick Bell, Judge Bell. It's good to be with you all this morning. I've been in this seat before, never been in a police officer's seat before, but I can tell you that I've seen the perspective of a victim and a victim's family. And there's a roller coaster that happens of emotions and feelings, a ride that's it's just incredible what they have to go through. And so, as my practice, either as a lawyer or now as a judge, I'm very cognizant of the people that are in front of the court, whether it's a defendant or a defendant's family, a victim or a victim's family. Everybody has their perspectives for how they come into the court. And you have to take people where they're at because they all need to be educated, and we learn from that as well. But I always get a lot from these conferences, rejuvenates me, and I hope it will you as well.
Thank you for that, Judge Bill. Let's start here, and then we'll make our way around, and we'll get right into the discussion.
So I'm Dr. Andrew Clark, pastor of Trinity Outreach Ministries and Holy Trinity Church and Cultural Arts Center, and the founder and chief facilitator of the Federation of Network Ministries. Happy to be here. Yeah.
Yes, my name is Pastor Arthur Ricks. I'm the associate pastor at Trinity Outreach Ministries. I'm also the president of the Ricks Brothers Foundation, which is the community organization serving the homeless.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Jeffries. I'm a youth engagement leader and junior deacon over at Sanctuary Baptist Church here on behalf of Pastor Mark Smith, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Bishop Tony Minor. I'm the pastor of Community of Faith Assembly in the Broadway area of Cleveland. Also serve as the manager of faith-based engagement and impact and mental health. And I also run a trauma and grief support group practice, rather, called We Do Recover.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sean Payne. I am a police lieutenant for the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland Police Unit. I'm also an executive board member of NOBLE, National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. And I also am a victim of a family member of my younger brother who was murdered in 2008.
Good morning. I'm Gertha Smith. I work for Parole Authorities in the mental health unit at the Cleveland region. I am here on behalf of NOBLE, National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. I am currently serving as their second vice president of the Cleveland region, and I'm really excited to be here and be a part of this conversation.
Hello, my name is Swana. I'm also here on behalf of NOBLE. I also work with the Adult Parole Authority as well as the task force for the U.S. Marshals, and thank you, I'm glad to be here. I also have a victim. My sister is also a victim of a crime as well.
Good morning, everyone. I am the pastor of Affinity Missionary Baptist Church. I'm a boomerang. I'm from Detroit, but I originally lived here in Cleveland for a considerable amount of time. I'm also the state and local tax manager for Deloitte. I'm happy to be here and to learn and be a resource and help to the community.
Pastor, you can tell us who you were.
I'm sorry, that's right. James Terrell Thomas. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sounds like it's time for introductions.
Yes.
My name is Reverend Robin Hitchman. I'm the pastor at Bethany Christian Church. Glad to be in the room.
A good friend of mine just popped in the room. County Councilwoman Mary Turner. I want you to come up here and a couple words.
Yes.
Come on. Talk in on us.
We want you to know, and I need to say this in here in another room, it's because of her generosity that we were able to host this conference.
Well, good morning. I am Mary Turner. I serve Cuyahoga County's 9th district, which includes Bedford Heights, Cleveland Wards 1, 4, and 6, Highland Hills, North Randall, Orange, Pepper Pike, Shaker, Warrensville, and the village of Woodmere. And as my good friend, my sister, my auntie, my mentor has said, it's been an honor and privilege for me to use my seat at the table to provide the funds for this conference here. I am also a survivor. My family is trauma impacted, and but I really heard it was lunch here today. So good morning. It's an honor to be with you.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna move a little bit on this side, so that way we can get right into it. First question I would like to pose to the panel. We kind of did some introduction, so Pastor Brady Stevenson, talk to us a little bit about your involvement in the community and how violent crime has affected you, maybe a little bit you've been a part of.
Good question. So, because I've been employed with the city for over 30 years, working closely with law enforcement for most of those 30, I've had a chance to see from all sides of it. I lost 3 family members to violence in the city of Cleveland. 2 nephews and a niece were all killed by gun violence in the city of Cleveland. But I've also had the opportunity to work with families who have been victimized by the same gun violence in the city of Cleveland. Work closely with law enforcement to help in those areas. So I've seen from start to finish on a lot of those incidents that happened in the city of Cleveland. Helped to put together what's now known as Peacemakers Alliance with Mayor Frank Jackson. Worked along closely with several of the outreach individuals to help bring some calm to some of the areas in the city of Cleveland where we had hot spots that we needed to work in. Worked very closely with Todd Wiles, who helps us with recognizing where gun violence is taking place and where we need to do outreach in the city of Cleveland. So, and I'll get into some of the other stuff that I do once we get further down the line, but that's just some of the stuff that I've seen and worked with in the city of Cleveland.
Thank you. And I'm gonna stay with you just a little bit, got a little time. Being one that has experienced tragic loss, how are you able to balance that as a pastor, but yet being just one that's a family person, a family member of one that has lost someone tragic like that?
Very good question. So self-care is important. And I know most of the pastors sitting around the table, we think that we can handle things just by doing the book, right? And making sure that we're prayed up and all that. But I'm gonna tell you, even when I thought I was okay, one day sitting in our meeting room for community relations, we were having our board meeting, well, not our board meeting, I'm sorry, but our staff meeting. And all of a sudden it hit me that I had this loss and didn't know where it came from. It just all of a sudden hit me. Well, thank God we had two pastors who worked very closely with me in that department, along with Dr. Pointer. They suggested that I leave the room and go with them. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I needed to get away from where I was at the time. And they took me out, took me down to St. Joe's, took me out by the water, set me there, and told me, sit here until God tells you to move. Right? And I tell you, I just lost a niece and a nephew. This was before the third one was killed, but I just lost two back to back. And I didn't know that I was traumatized to the point that I was. Because no matter what we think, trauma affects everybody some kind of way. And dealing with this every day and seeing this every day, I thought I had it handled. As a matter of fact, and I'll say this very briefly, then I'll sit down. I was in the family room in Metro, where I had been several times before counseling with families waiting for the doctors to come. And when my niece got killed, I was sitting there and I saw the doctor coming down the hall just as I saw him many times before. And I turned around and I told my coworker, I said, oh, she's gonna be good, right? And he came in and he said, I'm sorry, she didn't make it. It hit me like a ton of bricks, right? I fell to my knees just as I had seen family members do many times before. And I needed help, right?
Yeah.
I needed help. And so then I began to call on those around me and they began to support me in that area. So we'll get back into it, Jeff. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, absolutely. Commander Brown. Actually, Brown. When you think about his story and you think about these cases that happen far too often, we see it on the news, from your standpoint and your perspective, how do you make the call to a loved one of a victim? How does that make you feel from your perspective? And then I guess after that, what is the process by which you begin to move forward to find some kind of closure for the family?
Right. So, interesting word, closure. I too have, none of us are immune, right? So I too have, I lost a first cousin murdered while I was working. And June 1st of 23, his goddaughter was murdered in the city of Cleveland. So it's terrible to notify a family that they've lost a loved one. I'll just be transparent and clear. I don't believe in closure, to be honest with you, because I don't think those wounds ever truly, fully heal. But that's for me. what we try to do is give the family answers.
Yeah.
Why did this happen? Who did this? That's our ultimate goal, and to bring those people to justice. So when we get the call, we get our responding team together, we go out, and we work the scene. You know, there's a lot of things that go in. I won't go into a lot of detail, but canvassing for witnesses, canvassing for video, canvassing for any type of evidence that we can use to bring toward prosecution. It takes time to complete a scene, anywhere from 4 to 6, maybe 8 hours. It just depends on what the scene is like. And we then, once we've identified our victim, do a search and try to figure out who is the next of kin to go and make that notification. It's never easy. It's never obviously anything we want to do, but obviously it's necessary.
Yeah, when you, and I can't even imagine the phone, I'm pretty sure there's been many phone calls you've made, you know, as it relates to these type of difficult circumstances. Community. What is it that you would say in this room, the body of the community could help you, the police force, to bring justice? Because I'm sure that there's a lot of cases that are still open, there's a lot of cases that still are unanswered. You know, what do you suggest, what do you say in that regard?
I say that there's a prevailing thought that if you talk to the police, you're a snitch. I debunk that, right? Everybody wants answers to what happened to their families. So I think a lot of times people will hold on to that unless or until they become a family member of the victim.
Right.
So the thing that I would say is, don't be afraid to talk to us. You have to live, you don't want to be seen talking to us on scene, but you can call us freely and talk to us and tell us what we need to know and encourage others to do the same.
And I think sometimes people have misled or have a misunderstanding of what a snitch is. Snitch is one who committed a crime with another assailant, and they said, hey, yeah, he did it, yep, that's a snitch. But one who has not participated in the crime is not a snitch. You're a person who is actually rendering information to help solve a crime and to bring justice to a victim. So I think that needs to be, stated, because there's a misconception about snitches. And to you, I want to salute you for your work and the work of the Cleveland Police Department and everything that you all do. So thank you for your input. Anything else you want to say?
Unless you have
Go ahead.
In situations where I just thought about it, I used to always think about this, if someone witnesses a crime, let's say I see something happen, the streets say you tell, you snitching, they can get you. How do they know, how would they know if police didn't do a good job in investigating and finding out? They can still assume that you told. Like, if I'm a witness to something, I don't know if that's clear what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If I witness something happen, it's not like I'm gonna go to everybody in the street and say, I'm not telling anything, and you know me, but it's almost like if they find out, if they do the investigation and find out what happened, they can still look at me like I told. So I would rather take my chances cooperating with the police myself, but.
Yeah, sometimes it's not, in today's world of technology, a lot of what we get is from technology. It's not so much because people, in general, they won't talk to us. So we have to do our due diligence, and a lot of it is, you have people who post things on social media. Sometimes people post things that we intentionally have not released. And so when we pick up on those things, well, we know there's only a few people who know that particular fact. So you had to either be in law enforcement or you had to be here. So we follow up on those types of things.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Oh, go ahead.
Just add, I really appreciate your transparency. And the one thing that hit me was that victims look for answers.
Yes.
And I get that. but it resonated in my spirit in such a way. Is there a difference between finding answers versus finding the truth?
Well,
in the spirit of the question, I think you picked up the spirit of the question. I think that sometimes we're so rushed to give answers to calm the victim down, but are we rushing to find the truth? Okay, you get it.
Yes.
Right, go ahead.
So we don't rush. I think that we get beat up a lot because we do take our time. I'll say this: a homicide investigation is not like a narcotics investigation. If you mess up a narcotics investigation, okay, somebody's selling drugs, they get off. If you mess up a homicide investigation, that person will never be brought to justice ever because you can't do double jeopardy. So we don't rush. We absolutely take our time, and it's not in finding the truth is where we try to give the answers.
So we're just not giving answers just to give answers.
Absolutely.
Okay, but we know that happens from time to time.
Not
I know you.
in our department.
I'm sure you're not going to say it happens in your department, but it's just the spirit of that question. I know that it at times can be an issue. Okay.
So as a leader,
Yeah.
here's how I address it. It's like an artist with a blank canvas. We don't go in with any preconceived notions or ideas. I want to say that it does not matter the background of the victim. We don't care about that. What we care about is what happened, how do we find out what happened, and then how do we prove what happened. So once we prove what happened, therein is your truth and your answers. Yes, sir.
I don't have a question. I just want to celebrate you, celebrate your bravery. Just a few days ago, I attended the 156th graduation of police cadets. And I'm telling you, I was, amazed by the individuals who, made that bold statement that I'm going to protect and serve. And it takes really someone who really has the passion for that. And that was the infancy stages. To see where you are right now and how you're still dedicated to your work and pouring into the lives of others, I celebrate you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, sir.
You guys talked about working with the community and relying on a lot of help from the community to solve crimes. I was just wondering, are there any current or new steps you all are taking to establish trust within the community?
The way we do that is by getting out in the community and talking. Things like this. We'll never win back the trust that we lost. And I say we, whether it was me personally or something someone else did, it's broken. And the only way to fix it is to talk, in my opinion. And we have to do a better job. So those are the goals that we have set right now. Is it anything new? Not really. We got to go out and talk to people. And people have to learn that we're human. We do make mistakes. Some mistakes are unacceptable. But we need a little bit of grace, right? The same way that, we have to give grace to people in the streets because people in the streets make mistakes. So it's a give and take. We all have to realize that we're all human, we're all people, and we all deserve respect, we all deserve dignity, and things of that nature.
So, just to piggyback on that, because I want to make sure that we understand what we're doing here. Last month, we had a pastors and police luncheon.
Right.
The purpose of those gatherings is so that we can begin to build back that trust in the community, right? No one has a larger captive audience than pastors do every Sunday, right? We get those people every Sunday that we have an opportunity to talk to and push a message to every Sunday morning. And so, if we can build a relationship between police and pastors so that you begin to understand who he is as a person,
Right.
take the uniform away and just begin to understand who he is, who she is as a person, right? Then you begin to put a human aspect to the job, right? Now you begin to understand why, okay, we make mistakes in our lives too, right? Some not as costly as what might happen in their job, but still it happens. So that grace that he's talking about is what we're trying to get you to push to your congregation, right? To your community, right? And so when you begin to build those relationships and you have an opportunity to bring him out, right? You may be having a community meeting at your church, right? Now you have a relationship with him. You can call him up and say, hey, Brown, we're doing this week. Do you have time to stop over and maybe just have a conversation? That's what we're trying to get out of this and out of the luncheons that we have. Building relationships between police and pastors, build relationships between police and community, community and police. Right? Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead, because
do you find, like, I hear that, you know, building the trust that is very important and building those relationships, but do you think some of the communities more concerned about their safety? How are you working that they feel safe to report? And if I'm going to report, am I going to end up dead when I leave here? Especially when we're dealing with like homicides and particular crime.
So that's when we canvass, right? And we understand a lot of people won't even open their doors. So we leave cards. You know, you don't have to talk to us then, right then and there. You can call us and talk to us on the phone. And in transparency, I'll say this, there are some things that people see and people know that we can't just have you completely anonymous, because they're going to want to know where you got this information, right? Because if we don't, then it looks like we're making it up. So yes, we talked to Miss So-and-so over here, and this is what she told us. We document everything. We have to, because that's just the nature of this particular type of investigation.
But do you think that's what is causing like the breakdown of people like standing up and standing up for change?
It could be. Like I said earlier, I do understand you live on this street, this happened on your street, you want to feel safe on your street. So you have to make a decision on whether or not you're going to, I won't say do the right thing, whether or not you're going to talk to us or whether or not.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, yes.
Please. Yeah, I'm Pastor Rich. I'm a community outreach pastor, and for the last 8 years since the pandemic, I've been straight to the streets and the alleyways and highway. I've had direct contact with these homeless people, the drug people. What happened, like over in marginal area, when I go into these places, they talk to me concerning some of their concerns. I had a talk with one of the lieutenants over at the 4th District, where he was assisting me. Some of the problems that they had was that some of us, when we bring food and stuff down to them, the next day they would be moved out by the police. So they was asking my organization, okay, I've been dealing with them for 8 years now. What's happening is that I'm looking for a program. They got multiple problems down there. They got drug problems down there, where I had to talk to one of the drug dealers. He just got out of jail 2 days, and he went back in. So I was talking to the lieutenant. I'm trying to find out, how can we help these people down there? Because these people down there, when I'm bringing food, they hide because they figuring, I had a van and I was going down at our church. We had a addiction program. Now, when I'm going into these places, these makeshift places over there on Marginal, they have tarps. They put them on the branches where they blew, so that I can identify where they at, where I'm coming to bring food. So many times when I go into these places, these people got warrants on them. They don't want to be seen. Sometimes I video, they say they don't want to go live. So there's multiple things down there. So I'm yearning for a program, because I'm in there. I talk to them every day. I bring food to the drugs addict over on 13th and Superior. They were senior citizen building that mass on drugs. So I talk to these drug people, and I feed the building, and then I have to go over to one of the guys that's over there where the addicts at, and I feed them too. So I got contact in the hood, but we need some type of program where we can substantiate, like I said, the trust back to the police. Now, I'm in there, I'm always willing, if someone on the police force can come up with a way, because they got their own world down there. It's the own world meaning that they don't really want to go to police because they're doing drugs down there, they're hiding, warrants, very different things, sexual assaults and things like that. But whatever program that we can come together, I'm yearning to be one of the forefronters, you know what I'm saying, because this is a problem that's been existing since 2020. So we do need that contact, and with the media, trust me, moving away from the police. So we need somebody on the inside where they can trust and that they you know, can feel belong.
I'm gonna let you answer, and I'm gonna let Billy answer, and then I wanna give you a break, because you can stand up, I wanna keep it on that, sit on the hot seat, but we'll come back to him, because you know, we still got other panelists here, okay? But this has been great though, so I wanna make sure that we, you know, stay on track, but once you answer that, then Billy, then I wanna get to our prosecutor and our judge, okay?
Short
Hold
answer
the
is,
question.
that's a little bit outside of my purview. I can try to put you in touch with our community relations. I don't personally know of any programs that we have within the division that addresses that directly.
Right. Okay.
So, I'm Billy Sharp, through McDonald's, and I'm also the chair of the Cleveland Civilian Police Review Board. So I wanted to focus real quick on what Grady was talking about in regards to the trust coming back. So sort of a success story. I think our personal example is really important. So I got a nephew who sees me interact with the police and try to rebuild relationships we started during the pandemics, honoring our first responders. So he sees that, and I always preach that police officers are people too. They have families too. So he sees that. Other sides of our family may be doing some other things, so he sees the world from that vision. But me being an example to him, he actually joined the police force. He graduated in this last class that came out. So that trust is being rebuilt, but our personal and own example is really important as well.
I have a follow-up question to your statement. When I left Cleveland in 2015, the Justice Department had an active consent decree with the city of Cleveland. I'm just curious, is that consent decree still active today?
Yes, it
and
is.
do you anticipate a satisfactory end to that consent decree in the not too distant future?
Well, it's interesting you asked that question. I'm gonna just say really quickly. My board, the Civilian Police Review Board, just got word the other day that we're gonna receive an upgrade from the monitoring team. So we are on our way to coming out of the consent decree. We think maybe 3 to 4 years away from now. We do put the work in and we can come out.
Gotcha.
And let's give it up for all right, you in the hot seat now. Prosecutors.
I think keep going with
Yeah.
Great job.
Phenomenal.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I pretty much want to follow up from what you said and the commander said, and just overall the whole cultural dynamics of trusting the police and the community and so forth. This has been an ongoing thing for many years. It's nothing new, anything like that. Being in law enforcement and seeing the two sides of a coin, you have a different perspective on how life is. And like anything, to change that trust, we have to understand what the polarization of social media, TV, music, television shows, and things of that nature. We have to make sure we try to educate our young how and what trust is within the community and what policing and law enforcement all together. I say that from my own personal example, where my son is a police officer now. So just I may have to make sure to teach him to show, and he sees the two sides of the situation. We know the reality is we know there are bad people out there in law enforcement and also civilians. That's just keeping it real. Okay. So to make sure we have to do is pretty much educate our younger generations and what's the truth, and what trust is, and how to build that trust, and guide them and show them what's going on. And the thing is, it's not gonna be pretty. Some of the stuff we ain't gonna deal with. Man, like you said, I don't believe in closure either. I'm still angry to this day about my brother's murder. It's been over 17 years. And this is an unsolved case. But, you know, we just try to go with the stride and try to teach our younger generation about the truth and how this world is. Because if we don't teach them the positive aspects of things, they're gonna grow up negative. They're gonna have their own preconceptions of what the world is, and what community is, and police.
Thank you for that. And you have a lot of challenges as a prosecutor, you know, when it comes to putting together evidence, getting all the information from the police to bring justice. Can you talk a little bit about that and putting together that evidence to bring justice? How do you assure families that you can actually execute your job in the capacity to bring justice and to, as I guess I don't like to use the word closure now because you know, but to just to say, hey, you know, we found the truth, and here's where we are. How do you deal with that as a prosecutor?
Thank you. So, it's kind of interesting that I'm seated here between the police and the courts. And that's kind of the role a prosecutor has, is that we, you know, are dealing with law enforcement and dealing with, you know, the crime scene and trying to evaluate the evidence, so that we can then turn as officers of the court, go into court with the truth and with enough evidence to carry our burden. Our burden is beyond a reasonable doubt, not beyond all doubt, but beyond a reasonable doubt is the highest burden of proof in our system, our justice system overall. And so, evaluating, we have a lot of his detectives will come over to whoever is the supervisor of the homicide unit. Time I was there from 2012 to 2021 on a daily basis, talking through evidence, talking to the detectives, understanding what evidence have they gathered, where can we take this evidence, is there forensic evidence to be had, are there other witnesses to talk to, and so that is one of those interactions that we have on this side. And then once we have enough evidence, when we evaluate the evidence and we present it to a grand jury, I have to have the confidence that then I can then sustain my burden beyond reasonable doubt, take it into the court and take that evidence and talk to 12 people that know nothing about the parties, know nothing about the evidence, nothing really about the law, educate them on the law, the facts, and then try to bring the folks in. I can't, you know, I always thought, like, you just want me to come in here and just read your report, or do you want to see a person get up on that stand and tell you what they saw, okay, so that you can feel, you can hear, you can evaluate to a jury. And they're like, oh no, we want to see that person. We want to see that evidence come in. We want to look at that guy. We want to, you know, see that video. We want to hear the person on the stand, and so we can evaluate. And so that's my job, is then to be able to take their product and be able to package it in a way that can instruct a jury with regards to the law comes from the court, but you know, in terms of like mirroring that law to the facts to say we have enough evidence here beyond reasonable doubt that the jury can feel comfortable returning a verdict of guilt. Along the way is that family, and along the way is not only that when I'm talking to the police, bringing it to court, but have to be cognizant about the family and having the set expectations. You know, here's where our evidence is. I need X, Y, and Z. I need these 3 people to come in, and now they're not returning my calls, and now they're in the wind. And if I don't have these witnesses, I don't have a case. I had them at one point. They did a great job of finding these witnesses. There's like 3 or 4 other witnesses as well, in addition. But and so setting the expectations of the families from the get-go, meeting them early on, and also educating them regarding the process. And then there's, the pre-trial, the delays, the continuances, and then finally the trial, what goes on in the trial, some of the details that you see in the trial, maybe not something that they want to see, your loved one, the final days, final moments of the loved one's life. We have to guard against that. So there's a lot of vicarious trauma as well that we, I'm sure the police carry that, that we get from dealing with,
You stated that a lot of times you may have to reach out to the families because there are witnesses that have been established in the case. But sometimes they may pull back, they don't want to talk, they don't want to come testify. What do you do in that? How do you address that? How do you address it when you have families that are looking for truth?
Well, and part of that is just to educate and to set, set realistic goals and expectations of families.
Okay.
With these three witnesses, we have a shot at going to a jury and having a favorable outcome.
Are the witnesses often protected? I mean, is there some type of situation where they're offered some kind of protection? Because a lot of times witnesses are in fear of their life if they come to testify.
And that's why we have the problems,
Right.
That's why there's no win. That's why they're like, hey, find me. I come in, or not. And, to the question about the fear, and it's real.
Yeah.
I know early on, and we have patchwork. So we're not the feds. We don't have witness protection. We don't, the marshals, with the federal government. We don't have that, but we try to patchwork it together. We've got some money on I think Ready Glass with Frontline Services, where we might be able to move, a family here and there to a different neighborhood. Sometimes you just get out of the neighborhood. Sometimes it's 4 streets down and they're cool. Okay. But I can't have my name because unfortunately, sometimes their investigations and their details all come to me, and then because of the system and the justice and protecting constitutional rights, it all goes to the defendant.
Yeah.
And so they have everything I have with regards to the investigations, open discovery, and they see what the evidence is. Because as a defendant, you have a right to confront your witnesses. You have a right to challenge evidence against you. And they can't challenge it if they don't know who it is and they don't know what the evidence is. So we have the initial situation, and I'm not sure where it's at right now because I'm kind of a step away from that right now. I'm actually dealing with cold cases and homicide investigations right now. And then when it gets to court, the prosecutor's office has in the past moved people, moving expenses and first security deposit in certain situations. Again, Akron, even from, like I said, from the west side to the east side, or the east side to the west side, 4 or 5 blocks away.
So there are resources in place that protect witnesses.
Patchwork.
Patchwork.
It's not like a program or whatever. What we try to do is as much as we can to help with that.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Let's give them a hand. Judge Bell, I'm gonna come to you in a second, but I wanna talk to, yes. You have a unique job, because you're dealing with families that have to bury a loved one that was tragically taken away from them. Talk about that experience. How do you walk with that family when they've been broken, when they feel the loved one has been taken away unjustly, and you see the tears, you see the trauma. I mean, you gotta prepare this body for this family. Sometimes it gotta be a closed casket because the victim is unrecognizable because of the heinous act. And in some cases, these families don't even have insurance. How do you deal with that?
As a funeral director, we kind of we have to kind of absorb that pain when we sit with families. And that's a lot of what a funeral director's job is, to absorb that pain and turn that pain around into something, a celebration of that person's life and the good things that they did, because everybody, of course, in life, no matter, they are worthy human beings, no matter what kind of life they live. So our job has been, and for me, it's tough.
Yeah.
And it's tough. I mean, I heard this gentleman say about self-care, because, you know, we're absorbing this. You know, we're like in the line of defense after the hospital and the doctors. People come to us with a lot of anger. And so it's a tendency maybe blaming the funeral director when it's not directly our fault. So we sit with the families, and usually you're with a family for at least a couple hours because you're going through every detail of all the things. And gosh, how can I say it? You know, just feeling like the heaviness in just this room. I feel the pain in this room that just the police have gone through, families have gone through. I just, it's hard.
How do you sustain? What do you do to kind of, because you gotta have a moment to yourself. You know, even Jesus had to go to the mountain. You know, he had to get away. How do you get away to reset, so that way you can come back to help this family and walk with this family until you know that casket closed?
Well, I rely on my faith, of course.
Absolutely.
I rely on my staff. We come together in meetings, we try to talk through everything to make sure that that person's wishes, every family's wishes are honored, you know? Everything is on point. When a family comes to us, they want to make sure everything is precise.
Yeah.
Everything is perfect. And so that's what you feel that, and you want to make sure that you deliver for that family. So going through, touching every base, it's really important. It's really important for me, and I think it's really important for all of us as we come together as a staff. Because we want to honor that loved one. And gosh, I guess right now I'm just kind of overwhelmed emotionally, because I can understand and I feel the pain life when I sit with it.
Yeah.
So what I do is, again,
take your time.
Sometimes, you know, we pray with the family, although not everybody's Christian.
Right. Or spiritual. Yep.
And we honor that. I guess I'm a little overwhelmed at the moment, because I just, when someone is killed or when someone dies tragically, it kind of mounts it up, right?
Yeah.
It's not the same as if somebody's been sick for a long time.
Yeah.
And, you know, we all, you know, the loved one has passed. Right. It's so different to me than when someone dies tragically. They die quickly.
Yeah.
And they're snatched. That loved one is literally kind of snatched in the night.
Stolen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, and I asked this a little bit earlier, you know, because, you know, everybody here got life insurance?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just got a new provider, matter of fact, and my life insurance is a little bit cheaper. They increased it. So, bless it. But some of these families don't have life insurance.
That's right.
And that's a burden they put on you. How do you deal with that?
When, well, a lot of times, like you're saying, families don't have insurance, but and I do want to share that in every city, there is a capacity if someone is indigent. They don't have any assets. They don't have property, money in the bank. Every city someone should be able to go to their city hall and their law department, because we are obligated to take care of that loved one. Am I speaking correctly?
I think I'm not on my field of law, but I believe you're right.
Yep, a law department, like the city of Cleveland has maybe a city funeral director that they contact with,
Okay.
who is obligated to take care of that loved one. They would either, and a lot of times they will cremate that loved one.
Okay.
Or they don't have where they're necessarily buried. And I think there are limitations on how much of a service the family can have, or if they can even receive those cremated remains. Once the cremation is complete, but there are, agencies through each law department, as I've been told, that families can go to. So sometimes we will contact those places and make those arrangements.
Yeah.
Again, a loved one in most cases cannot be embalmed, and they cannot have the service and such.
Wow.
At the funeral home, unless it's at that contract.
Wow. That's interesting. And I know you're overwhelmed, so I'm gonna ask you one more question. So, we've seen cases where there's been shootouts at funeral homes. We've seen cases where there's just been unprecedented violence in certain. Have you experienced that? Have you and Boyd experienced that?
I do know that we have seen in services where guns have been kind of passed down in the aisle, where people are seated.
Okay.
We have at times been told that we call in the police to be there for protection because we don't know what could happen because of when someone's been killed. But we haven't really had necessarily shoot out. But there's been times when people have pulled guns and we just had to.
Okay.
People have had to find cover.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And hey, did she do a good job?
Oh, yeah.
Because I do want to share with people.
Absolutely.
That when you talk about with insurance.
Yes.
It's, a lot of times people don't think that insurance is important. And so they do put the burden on the funeral director. But we try to get the message out how pre-arrangements and talking with family is so important. And we do a lot of community outreach in that way because people don't truly understand funerals are at least $7,500. And depending upon what you select. So I just, or even just put money aside sometimes somewhere, because if you leave there and there's no preparation and you just drop it on your family, it just seems like such an unfair burden.
And they're emotionally wrecked, and then they're taking that energy out on you. Oh, well, funeral home directors such as yourself, and all you're trying to do is provide a service to help them, walk.
But you gotta still turn this all around.
Yeah.
Take all this pain.
Yep.
And then you gotta still turn it around to lift them up.
Right.
To release that burden, at least in part, so that you celebrate life at the end of the, by the time that service is up.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh,
go ahead.
So, and this is for you two both, like when we talk about building trust and some of the defendants or offenders that you come across, it's like, well, how were you arrested? And they state things like, oh, I was arrested at my funeral, at my brother's funeral, at my sister's funeral.
Right.
How, is that even very common, or that's just every blue moon? And how do you feel about that when we're working to build trust with law enforcement, but then we're disrupting the grieving area, but again, having to protect the community? That's a lot.
That's the big guy. You're not slick. I see what you did. From my standpoint, it has to be something very serious for us to do something like that. I mean, if you have a warrant, traffic warrant, or whatever, something, we don't care about that. I mean, not that we don't care. We're not coming to that. I mean, you have to be wanted, pretty much, for a murder. And if we know where you are, that's where you're gonna be. Don't blame us, right? That's
But don't you think that's a difficult situation to be in? Like when you're like, we're working to build trust, and I'm grieving my loved one, and then it's like, you are a high profile person that we have to take in custody, and it does happen at the funeral, and then.
It would be pretty.
Yes.
It has happened. It's not pretty, but it is what it is. I don't know any better answer to give.
But you know, I want let me say something. You know, I'm not the police. I'm good here. Being police. I say this. I feel like that. First of all, if you've committed the crime and you know you're on the run, then why are you showing up to number one, you're showing up to a funeral to pay respect, which I understand, but you put your family at risk. You possibly will bring unnecessary attention to the funeral, to the services that's honoring the loved one that has transitioned. You know, at the end of the day, man up, woman up. If you broke the law and you know you did this wrong, turn yourself in. Or stay away until you get caught on your own terms. But don't put others at risk. And that's just my perspective on it. Because again, you know, you're putting so many people in a position that is so difficult. His team, your family. And yeah, you know, no one's cold-hearted, I'm pretty sure a killer or murderer or alleged killer, we say alleged killer or murderer, and you know, you're innocent until you're proven guilty, should have the opportunity to pay respects, but at the same time, you got unfinished business, and you need to have your business. Go ahead.
I just want to say is, depending on the crime that's been committed and so forth, we go to a few. If it's that severe for like a homicide or anything like that, imagine what the other family, the victim, feel then. Okay. Yeah. All right. So we focus on that part, but what about the families of the victim? What they want to see justice being done.
Oh, absolutely.
You understand? So yeah, I get it. Yeah, but at the same time.
Oh yeah, let me say that. I'm not saying for him to stay on the run. I'm saying in the sense of just addressing her question. Her question was, how do you have trust? First of all, if you murder somebody, you've already broken trust. So you can't even talk about trust. You know, you've already violated the community, you violated someone, their family, the whole nine, so there's no trust there. But if you happen to pop up at a funeral and they get word that you there, their job is to secure you. Their job is to grab you and to take you into custody. And I'm saying that if that's an individual, that individual is selfish because you're putting your family at risk because anything can jump off, can become violent, there's a lot that goes into that. And yes, the victim who suffered and the family that suffered, they need justice. So yeah, so there's a lot that goes into that. Now, that's just my perspective.
But I think we all understand, like, at this table, that perspective, that we all are seeing, but I was just asking, like, when we do certain things, as we spoke of earlier, social media is a big thing. The, news or fake news or whatever we want to call it. That is what our community they're seeing. We're seeing a holistically view. We can make that connection. Social media doesn't help us make that connection.
Correct.
And that's my opinion.
Yeah.
So I would say individual responsibility. I think we often spend a lot of time getting away from individual responsibility, then we would blame the police department because they have to make such a drastic arrest. But the example has to be set. We have individual responsibilities and not to place that blame on somebody else. So to Jeff's point, if I committed a murder, I got an answer for that. I think if I'm law enforcement, I don't want somebody who committed a murder around mass people who knows what might happen. So I think individual responsibility, we got to get back to the basis of teaching one another, each other by example, that individual responsibility. When you do something, you have to pay the price. Sometimes it's not going to be pretty. And I agree with your comment, arrangements can be made. Maybe you don't get them in the middle of the funeral, but, on their way out or whatever. And I'm sure the police take that into account. But let's not blame the police because they have to make a hard call.
Yes.
Just a quick insert. Now, as a this is a quick pastoral insert, okay? Because I have had to deny services at my church because of the fear of violence. And it only took one time for me to have a service, and it got really, really crazy. And people all out in the street, and it was just mayhem. And so you don't know that when we're sitting in the office talking to the people that are planning, you know. Okay, they can talk really nice. and okay, but anyway. So now we're doing a lot more thorough vetting of the families now. I need to know the situation, I need to know what's going on. I need to know the nature of the whole thing. And so I have even last year, I may have denied 4 or 5 services for the fear of that. Now, there might be a question when we're coming upon a questionable service. Are we in position to call or to call your department or someone to, hey, provide some coverage? From my standpoint, we just don't do it.
So there are times when we'll get contacted, and to your point, sometimes it's really not even the family, it's the friends of the homies or whoever of the person who was killed that really causes a lot of the issues. But we are notified, hey, you know what, there's been some threats of retaliation and at the funeral or whatever, and when we get that information, we have actually one of our officers sitting in the back here, then we'll contact our nice unit, and they will actually go up and set up, even the gang unit, they'll go up and set up and be present. Sometimes we'll walk inside, most of the time we're just posted outside, just as a presence and hopeful deterrent.
In uniform?
Yes.
And okay.
Uniform and blankets, yes. And lastly, if I may, I think that if we don't address the person that we know is there, we're derelict in our duties, not to go and do what we need to do.
In listening to a lot of these conversations and how we opened up talking about the influence that pastors have on a Sunday morning, I feel like this is calling us to be more proactive as pastors and expanding our voice and responsibility to more than just preaching the gospel, but more putting it into practice. For example, you know, when you talk about not having life insurance, well, as pastors, we can be proactive and making sure that members, before the event happens, have conversations with, because you never know who your congregants are connected to that may not have insurance. And so that could be, you know, things, just workshops at the church and partnering with other churches. You kind of talk about just the grief period of that. You know, we as pastors have to be cautious that we don't bleed over the pulpit because our biases begin to bleed through the sermons. Well, you know, we have to also be resources to police officers, to those in those services that help those that are navigating grievance spaces. We have to offer counseling aspects, and we also have to be honest with ourselves and recognize, well, I don't have the answer, but I can connect you to someone who could, you know, in moments like that. And even in situations where crimes are committed by our parishioners or, you know, connected, and be that voice to say, look, let me walk with you as you turn yourself in to protect you. You know, so that violence won't occur, because sometimes you think you're bold to show up at funerals thinking no one knows you are the one that committed that crime. You know, those moments where we as pastors can, you know, kind of take the steam out of some of the challenges that law enforcement, prosecutors, judges and funeral directors face. That's just my opinion, not,
Great perspective. We're actually about to be rounding home, and I just want to thank everybody for participating. And I'm gonna come to you because I can't let you not say nothing today. So you've been quiet. I gotta let you say something. That's my big brother. I'm coming to one of my favorite guys, Judge Bill. Ask you a question. You got one of the hardest jobs because you have to pronounce judgment when it comes to these sort of situations, and you have to take into account everything. So you have to be firm, you have to be fair, you have to have a common sense approach, you have to have all these different elements. And your ruling could have a lasting effect on both families, both that's involved. How do you deal with that? Especially being a former prosecutor, and you are, as we all know, let's just recap, he's the reason why we were able to, Auntie Yvonne was able to get justice for her daughter's murder. This is the man behind it. But now he's a judge. How do you, in this position, oversee these cases carefully with clear understanding, judging righteously?
I come to these things, I think I'm just gonna sit down and listen, and I end up witnessing, okay? I have to talk, to answer that question, if I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
I have to try to stay in prayer all the time. All the time. In the morning, I will drive to work, at work, on the bench, going back home, at nighttime, and I've come to learn a lot. I think it's just part of getting older, because I did all the tough work, leading the investigations of homicides and murders, and rapes, and all of that. I have so much respect for the work that the commander and his people do, and prosecutor Saleh Awadallah. Isn't that a great name? It took me years to perfect it, but the victims that we deal with feel as if the criminal justice system somehow is going to offer them an answer, the truth, a panacea. And so they are, the defendants' families as well, leave unfulfilled, unsatisfied. The rubber hits the road with the funeral director, okay, and with the police and the prosecutor, and they're going through the grief cycle that this is all about here. Through each and every person that they meet. And I have to pray about this. What can I do now as a judge? Because I have to be fair, I have to be firm in certain circumstances, but I have to be merciful as well. And sometimes you have to temper justice with mercy, and sometimes you have to temper mercy with justice. Justice is, it's elusive because it's personal. What's just for you on a particular case as a defendant's father could be very different than from a victim's mother. And the most difficult case that brought this to my attention was the Maple Heights case that occurred in Maple Heights in the park. It'll come back to mind when I talk about it a little bit. So you have a gentleman who ends up murdering his sister, and she's pregnant, and she loses the baby as well. And he murders her husband, chases him down, shoots her in the car, in the back of the head as she's trying to get away. In the car with her is his own son. And there was domestic violence between him against the sister and the family. He was jealous. He was jealous, extremely jealous and spiteful. And I didn't think this was gonna be that difficult of a sentencing, okay? He killed, 2 people, took the life of her unborn child, 7.5 months pregnant. Yeah. In comes into the courtroom the mother of the victim, who is the mother of the defendant. Where does she sit? She didn't realize she was going to have to make a choice. When she came in the doors and I'm sitting on the bench looking at her, I see her come walk in and then stop, frozen, stuck in the middle between the state's side and her son's side, between her daughter's side and her son's side. There was no side at that point. What does she do with this? What does the defendant's son, who survived, do with this? You killed my aunt. I have, and I listen to him. He's the person in the room, more so than the judge, more than the state, more than the police, more than even the defendant. What do you make of all of this? And he cried at the podium, put his head down, and said, I love you, Dad, but I can't forgive you right now. I know I have to. I know I need to be there. I know I need to get there. Yeah. And so I'm going to be praying for you. And ultimately, what this is all about is treating each person that comes in front of you with what their needs are. Okay? God is trying to speak to them individually, and you have to try to figure out, as a judge, as a funeral director, as a commander, as a chief prosecutor, you have to, why am I here? How can I help? How can I serve this person? I have to mete out justice. I have to mete out mercy. Can I do the same thing? And so with my sentencing, I oftentimes will address the defendants. I'll let the victims speak as much as they want. And then I want to speak to this young man who's done this terrible thing. And tell him, even though he needs to go to prison, that this doesn't define his life necessarily. That there's more to it than this particular day. And I think when you take the time to address people individually, like we're about to at lunch at our tables, and you're here for a purpose. I'm here for a purpose. I'd say that only very humbly. You know, the work that the pastors do you're so traumatized. You have to be with all of the hurt that people come to you with, all the hurt that they come to you at the funeral. I've been at funerals where this has happened before. I don't know how you deal with that. The rubber, that's where the rubber hits the road, really. And you can see how the people in the community might be upset with the police, and the police have become hardened because they're constantly being attacked. Okay, and the only thing that you can do is, I believe that all of this ultimately still comes down to you and the Lord. Yeah, that's what I believe. To whoever you are in this scenario, the victim, the victim's family, the defendant, the pastors, the funeral directors, the commander, the prosecutor as well, and the judge. And so ultimately we're here to serve, and the way that I get through it is to ask him, how can I serve? Why do you have me here? It might just be, oftentimes I just hear, just listen. I'm not asking you to do anything, just be here. Just listen. I hear the person through, all the way through. And then from there, maybe there's something that you can do with that. Or there might be some services, somebody that you can connect them to if you don't know that. But he knows that you know. Yeah. Now he knew that I knew the people that could help Dr. Pointer. He knew that. You know? Yeah. And oftentimes we're just the conduit. And isn't that what it's all about? We are just the county. That's all right.
Bishop Lyon, I know you had a question. You wanted to make a remark.
No, I didn't have a question. I'm just taking in. I'm going to be closing out the conference at 2 on grief and trauma, connection between grief and trauma.
Okay.
So I'm just
taking in.
Just taking in.
Okay.
Yeah. To Judge Bell, you realize and you seem enlightened that in God's mission for you, it can be handing out a prison sentence because that's what He wanted you to do to get to that person, because that's what that person needs to understand to get something right. You fully get that. How do you grapple with that?
It's a lot more difficult when I was in this position. Judge, I want you to send him away to the maximum time. He deserves it, you know? And then when you're there and you're dealing with the reality of it, you have to be guided also by the law. That's why you're here. And the principles and purposes of sentencing is codified in Ohio. It's to deter. That's the first principle and purpose. To deter this person from committing crime in the future, or deter other people. It's called specific and general deterrence. So you're there to try to assist the community and that person, that crime won't be committed in the future, okay? And then there's punishment, yes, it has to be just, and you have to balance that. So when I send somebody to prison, which you have to from time to time, you have to say, okay, how much time can it be before he can be rehabilitated, he can answer this crime, but it won't be a burden on, too much of a burden on the community as a whole. And what's that sweet spot? What does he need? Okay? And there's so many complex cases. You'll have cases where you have an 18-year-old who's shooting people. We have so many of those now. And you need to stop him from coming out immediately, even though he's 18, right? So it has to be a lengthy enough time so he realizes and he gets some perspective that I can't shoot people, right? And something usually happens to people around in their early 40s, 50s, you know. You get a little wisdom. I don't know why, but maybe that's the grace that somebody mentioned before, or maybe that's just naturally growing older and realizing that you want to be safe, and you want the people in your life to be safe. But some of these people that are that young, I'm talking about juvenile offenders, and we have so many of them out there now with guns and actually shooting people. They're just not thinking, you know, and if it's too quick of a turnaround. So I think to myself, I'm saving him as well, because I know that if he keeps doing what he's doing, that within the next 4, 5, 6 years, maybe less, maybe months, he will not make it. He will not make it. He simply can't.
Judge Bill, let me ask you a question. With the responsibility that you have sitting in that bench and making these decisions and sentencing and just overseeing these cases, how do you reset? How do you, outside of prayer, we know prayer is number one, but what do you do? Do you golf? Do you shoot pool? What do you do to kind of?
I walk daily if I can. Okay, 3 miles in the morning, 3 miles at night, maybe.
That's why you look so good. I know you look good.
I work out a little bit, on the weekends, Yard work. I do yard work.
Okay. Okay.
And my wife resets me.
Okay, your wife resets you.
Reset me so fast. I feel too sorry for myself. Get out of your head. Try to get out of your head.
Just a quick insert question. So how much weight is placed on letters from pastors in terms of deciding on a particular case? And I know I've written a ton of letters for lots of people. Do you actually read them? And maybe that's to both of you guys.
Yes.
too, I'm not sure.
I absolutely read them. I like them. I want to see what the connection is between the pastor, and because sometimes it's just the pastor's writing it on behalf. Is he taking it seriously, the defendant, okay? Usually the letters we get from pastors are on behalf of defendants. And one of the things we have to consider is whether or not the person is showing genuine remorse. They enter a plea of guilty, yes, they likely are. But are they genuinely remorseful? Because you can work with remorse, right? When someone comes in to confess their sins, you know, it's easier to redirect that person. And so if I see through the letters that the person is actually, that he feels some, if not shame, at least understanding of what he did, and I can get him to realize, okay, you don't want to do that anymore, or you're not going to do that, then I can get to that principle and purpose of sentencing, which is to protect, to deter him, and the community's protected. So they do mean a lot to me.
And you should know that, well, the letters that I sent, okay, there is a connection that I have with that particular person, and there's strong emphasis on what the church is prepared to do, in addition to other kinds of things. But there's usually I usually put several line items of what we intend to do based on this particular parishioner or what have you. So I just never know whether or not you guys read it, or we don't usually get a response. We don't usually get a response.
Every judge does, but
okay.
For me it means a lot, because then I know that there's some purpose for this young man's life, young person's life. And Pastor Nance has a program that I try to put people into, which kind of helps assist a 10-step process where they learn a little bit about computer skills, learn about how to dress, their hygiene, basic things, that some people actually really need. So, but no, it means a lot. I think every judge reads those. To me, I see a general direction then for the person's life and the way out of this. But I need to know that they're not going to hurt somebody in the future.
Right.
Well, y'all, we've come to the tenure of this part of the conference, and I want to thank everybody. Before we leave, because we're about to have some lunch, right? Okay. Will you close us out in prayer, Judge Bill? Will you do that for us? Let's all stand.
Heavenly Father, thank you for having us be here today, to listen to each other, to be able to express our hurt, our pain, to be able to come together with the resolve to help those that you wish us to help, to do our jobs with competence and with confidence, that your will for each of us will be done. Amen.
All right. Let's go to lunch. Thank you all.
Who always attended the luncheon, just make sure for us, you see the signs, you see police, pastor, sit towards, start from the front, where you